Hello crafty friends, I'm Lynn from Studio Cato and I'm so glad you're joining me again today. Today's video is another episode in my Merry Monday series where I make Christmas cards or holiday related cards up until Christmas. And today's card is pretty much a one-layer card. I made it onto a separate panel that I glued onto a card base, but other than that there are no layers involved, so it's perfect for mass producing if you like coloring and ink blending. This was fairly quick to make, but I will give you some tips on how to make it quicker if you do want to mass produce this design. Now I'm starting out with stamping my sentiment. This is from the Wishing You stamp set by Mama Elephant, and that just allows me to put a nice sentiment inside the card, and the Wishing You is the focal point on the front of the card. And I stamped that in Versamark ink onto Canson Montval 300 GSM watercolor cardstock, and then I heat embossed that with Wow embossing powder, and this is the metallic platinum embossing powder. It's a nice warm silver, I really like it. I also stamped that same sentiment onto a mask. I just used a post-it note for that, and then I temporarily adhered that over my sentiment on the card. I can then put that in my Misti. I temporarily adhere the card panel on the door of the Misti. That way I can see exactly where the background stamp will stamp on the card. And the background stamp I'm using today is by Catherine Pooler. It's called String Lights and I really like it for the holiday season. I stamped that in Versafine Onyx black ink and heat embossed that with clear gloss superfine embossing powder by Wow. But again, if you're mass producing these cards, maybe heat embossing isn't the best way to go, especially if you're doing it twice on one card. Maybe skip the one with the background stamp and emboss your sentiment instead. Just make sure if you're doing ink blending that you use an ink that won't smudge, and Versafine Onyx Black is perfect for that. Now I'm blending a gradient on this card, and that is by far the step that took the longest time. I'm using Pinkfish Studio dye inks today. I'll list the colors I used down below in the description. But if you want to speed up the process, the Distress Oxide inks might blend easier, and they do give more coverage from the first go around. So that's another option if you have those inks. Now, just really quickly, you can see I am blending that second color all the way to the edge. And that's because I want to have a little bit of coverage already there when I put my darkest blue on there. Blending the midtone all the way to the edge, even though you're going to cover it up with a darker color, can be really useful to deepen up those tones on the edges of the card. I will also deepen up the edges even more with a really dark purple. I like to do that when I'm blending a dark blue as well. Now again, if you're mass producing something like this, maybe start with a colored cardstock. If you start with a light blue cardstock, you will save one step already. Just make sure you use a thick cardstock that will hold up to the ink blending well, and especially to this last step, which is the Finetec metallic watercolor paint. Now this paint is perfect if you want a dramatic effect, because it gives a really nice shine and shimmer to your project, and it lays down super well onto dark surfaces. Now, one thing to keep in mind, which you will see as well, this paint is watercolor paint, and these dye inks are water reactive. So this paint might reactivate the ink underneath, and those colors might blend together and mix a new color. I didn't have a lot of issues with that, apart from the gold paint, but I did keep it in mind while painting. That's why my painting might be not as even as I would like, because I didn't overwork the paint on top of this ink. You might have more of a problem with this if you try to keep your painting super precise and super perfect. I didn't want that for this card, I just wanted a nice shiny light bulb. I also filled in the string with the black Finetec paint. I really like that paint. It has a really subtle shimmer to it, but it's beautiful when you tilt it in the light. And that's pretty much it for the card. I will glue that onto a card base, but other than that, the card is finished. Now for the envelope, I am again using some pattern paper because I have tons of Christmas pattern paper. And I really like this blue one because it has that swirly thing going on. And I thought that pattern was reminiscent of the string of lights. If I'd had a little bit more time in my day, I would have deepened up the edges of the cardstock with some ink blending to remind you of the colors that I used on the card. But I also like it as it is. I really love that dramatic card that I made. It's super impactful even though it's a one-layer card because you have that spotlight ink blending and then the gorgeous pearlescent watercolors on top. I hope you like it too. If you did, make sure to leave a like on this video and leave your thoughts in the comments below. I would love to read them. I'd also love to hear about your holiday card making. Have you started on your Christmas cards yet? Or are you a last minute kind of person? Are you someone who likes to mass produce cards? Or are you someone who makes a special one for each different person? Whatever your holiday card making looks like, I really appreciate that you checked out my video. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe to my channel if you want to see more of my videos. And I will see you next time.